On September 29, 1833, a heavy silence enveloped the royal palace of Madrid. Within its hallowed chambers, a man lay dying. His name was Ferdinand III, King of Spain, and at the age of 48, he was consumed by a venereal disease, a curse that had plagued his body for years, born from a lifetime of indulgence in the most degrading pleasures. The echoes of his agonizing groans reverberated through the palace corridors as doctors fought in vain to alleviate his suffering, but the cruel irony was undeniable. The man who had once proclaimed himself the defender of Catholic values and Spanish traditions was now being destroyed from within by the very vices he had so proudly embraced. His demise, humiliating in its nature, was the ultimate consequence of a life of depravity and selfish indulgence. To understand how Ferdinand II became the most despised and perverted king in Spanish history, we must look to the dark origins of his life, uncovering the twisted secrets that stained both his soul and the Spanish crown. Born on October 14, 1784, Ferdinand entered a Spain still holding on to the vestiges of its former glory. The son of King Charles IV and Queen Maria Luisa of Parma, Ferdinand grew up amidst a court steeped in intrigue and corruption. His mother's notorious affairs, particularly with the infamous Manuel Godoy, who effectively ruled Spain through his influence over the royal family, set the stage for Ferdinand's own moral decay. From a young age, Ferdinand showed a disturbing nature. At just 10 years old, he was already displaying signs of extreme cruelty, tormenting animals and servants alike. Contemporary accounts reveal a terrifying reality. He tortured cats for sport and forced his servants into acts of degradation for his amusement. His tutors, alarmed by his behavior, sought to correct him, but their efforts were futile. Any who dared challenge his desires were swiftly dismissed or punished, ensuring Ferdinand's unchecked descent into moral chaos. His education was a disaster. Unlike other European princes who were rigorously trained in intellect, he rejected knowledge, despised art and literature, and remained willfully ignorant about state matters. His only interest seemed to be indulging his most primal desires, such as spying on courtiers through holes he had ordered to be made in the palace walls. At 18, Ferdinand was married to his cousin Maria Antonia of Naples in what was supposed to be a civilizing union. Yet it only fueled his descent into deeper perversion. He subjected his young wife to humiliating and degrading sexual acts, traumatizing her to such an extent that she sought to live in isolation, avoiding his company whenever possible. The situation worsened as Ferdinand realized his position gave him the power to coerce women into satisfying his base desires. He blackmailed ladies-in-waiting, threatening their families with ruin if they refused him. His obsession with married women, viewing their seduction as a form of domination over their husbands, led many noble families to silently endure the dishonor of their wives to maintain their positions at court. Maria Antonia's premature death at 21, officially attributed to tuberculosis, raised suspicions. Rumors persisted that she had been poisoned or had died of heartbreak due to her husband's cruelty. Yet Ferdinand remained indifferent, callously remarking that her death had freed him to pursue other pleasures. Even amidst the chaos of the Napoleonic invasion of Spain, Ferdinand saw only an opportunity to further his personal interests. When his father's abdication, forced by a French mutiny, left Spain vulnerable, Ferdinand did not rally his people. Instead, he secretly negotiated with Napoleon, offering to deliver Spain to the French in exchange for personal privileges. Exiled to the castle of Valencia, Ferdinand spent years living in luxury at Napoleon's expense, indulging in carnal pleasures and engaging in debauchery with French servants. It was during this time that he contracted syphilis, a disease that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Intercepted letters revealed his insatiable desire for female entertainment, completely indifferent to the suffering of the Spanish people. His return to Spain in 1814 marked not a rebirth of hope, but the restoration of tyranny and decadence. One of his first actions was the re-establishment of the Inquisition, not from any religious conviction, but as a tool to persecute enemies and further blackmail families into submission. Ferdinand's second marriage, this time to Isabel of Bonza, a 19-year-old Portuguese princess, plunged deeper into perversion. At 32, already marked by years of excess, he subjected his new wife to even worse treatment than his first. The Spanish court under Ferdinand's rule became a den of corruption, where royal favors were granted only to those willing to sacrifice their wives or daughters to his lust. Ministers were appointed based not on competence, but on the beauty of their female relatives. Ferdinand maintained a personal harem of ladies-in-waiting whose sole purpose was to satisfy his desires. As the years passed, Ferdinand's cruelty only grew. His sexual practices were so perverse that they shocked even the lenient standards of the time. Secret court documents reveal a man obsessed with sadistic rituals, forcing women into degrading acts for his amusement. His third wife, Maria Josepha Amalia of Saxony, was just 20 when she was delivered to him, and the marriage lasted only 2 years before she too succumbed under mysterious circumstances. A growing suspicion arose that Ferdinand's treatment of his wives had led to their untimely deaths, physical abuse, psychological torment, and a refusal to care for their well-being. By the 1820s, Ferdinand had reached the pinnacle of his depravity. He kept numerous mistresses, including nuns whom he coerced into breaking their vows through blackmail and threats. He developed an unhealthy obsession with virgins, offering generous rewards to those who could bring him innocent young women, often selling their souls to the king to avoid even worse fates. Meanwhile, Spain under his rule collapsed. The once great empire crumbled, its colonies declared independence one by one. The economy faltered and Spanish society sank into chaos. Ferdinand, however, remained wholly indifferent to the suffering of his people, his mind consumed only with satisfying his ever more extreme desires. His fourth marriage to the 23-year-old Maria Cristina of Bourbon was an act of desperation to produce an heir. Yet by this time, syphilis had already ravaged his body and mind, diminishing his ability to inflict further harm. Ferdinand's final years were marked by slow, agonizing decay. The syphilis that had haunted him for years gradually consumed his body, leaving him a shell of the man he had once been. His doctors, unable to hide the truth, could only watch as the once feared king became a pitiable spectacle, his body covered in painful ulcers, and his mind deteriorating beyond recognition. By the time of his death on September 29, 1833, Ferdinand was abandoned by all but his doctors. The victims of his cruelty had either fled or perished, and even his courtiers shunned him, repulsed by the stench of his festering wounds. He died alone, a wretched figure, consumed by his own vices, leaving behind a kingdom in ruins. There were no tears for him, only relief, a nation freed from the reign of its tormentor. Ferdinand III's legacy is one of the darkest in European history. His reign marked the fall of Spain from a great power to a nation mired in ruin. His obsession with indulgence cost Spain its dignity, its colonies, and its standing in the world. More than that, he left a horrific reminder of how absolute power, untempered by morality or self-restraint, can corrupt a soul beyond redemption. He is remembered not as a king, but as a predator, a man who used the crown to satisfy the lowest of human impulses. His story is a chilling testament to the consequences of a life lived in cruelty and vice, a reminder that even royal blood cannot protect one from the inevitable destruction that comes with such a life. The life and death of Ferdinand III serve as a painful reflection of the destruction caused by a life of indulgence and moral decay. A king once at the peak of power, he allowed his vices and poor decisions to ruin everything he had. His death was not only the end of a cruel reign, but also the liberation of a nation trapped in his depravity. The suffering he left behind is not just a personal legacy, but a cost paid by an entire nation for the absence of morality and power. The destructive nature of unchecked power. Ferdinand III stands as a stark reminder of the dangers of absolute power without accountability. When power is not tempered by moral values, it can transform a person into a tyrant, harming both themselves and those around them. The consequences of indulgence and lack of self-control. His life is a cautionary tale of pursuing base desires without restraint. His career and life were ruined by poor decisions, from violent actions to the glorification of shallow pleasures, unaware that these choices would eventually lead to his downfall. The importance of ethics in leadership. A leader, no matter how powerful, cannot ensure long-term prosperity for their nation without ethics. Ferdinand's immoral actions weakened Spain and tarnished the reputation of both himself and his royal family. Learning from history. Ferdinand III's story is a reminder to reflect on history carefully, not only to learn from past mistakes, but also to build a better future. His life serves as a chilling warning that even royal blood cannot shield one from the consequences of a life dedicated to vice and cruelty.